Rubber ducky, you're the one. Hello, Skele Vaderites and friends of Skele Vader. Why Sesame Street? Sesame Street, Sesame Street. Maybe it's because of these two guys. Dun dun dun. All right, welcome to the video. If you're new to the Skele Vader channel, please click like and subscribe. If you're an experienced Skele Vaderite or friend of Skele Vader, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited and feeling a little emotional about today's subject matter. Today, we're talking about Sesame Street, and we're not gonna cover everything because we simply can't. I have some elements of Sesame Street in my collection. If you watch this channel, you're familiar with all that. But today I'm going to be talking about why Sesame Street is so very significant for me. And I'm also going to be talking about a few things that have come out recently that are pretty darn amazing in regard to Sesame Street. And I'm just going to say this now. Today I'm going to be thanking the company NECA a lot, because what they're doing right now with the Sesame Street line is really amazing. You all know that I'm a fan of what Super 7 has been doing with Sesame Street lately. For example, there's all this new Super 7 stuff. This giant vinyl Big Bird was just announced by them. And of course, there's all these reaction figures that have been coming out, blind boxes and sweaters and t-shirts and pins. And if you're interested in buying some of this stuff from Super 7, my affiliate link was listed right down below there. And also you can find that underneath this video. Well, NECA's doing some amazing things too. They're putting a little bit of a different edge to this, and I couldn't be more ecstatic. I'm very excited. Now, why is Sesame Street important to me? Why am I even interested in Sesame Street? Well, it goes back to my childhood growing up watching PBS. A lot of you probably grew up watching PBS. We watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We watched Reading Rainbow. We watched Sesame Street. And I loved those shows. I absolutely loved Reading Rainbow. I absolutely loved Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and I definitely loved Sesame Street. And I would say Sesame Street, for me, is the most significant of those shows because it does something that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood did, but it does it on a whole different level. And if you're familiar with this channel, forgive me for repeating myself, but one of the things that impresses me the most or sticks with me the most is world building. And the Sesame Street set was amazing. The architecture was right on the money. It made me feel like I was entering a neighborhood that I was not familiar with. And I can imagine for kids growing up in New York City or Brooklyn or Queens, this set or this place would be familiar to them. And for me, it was otherworldly. It was such a cool thing. I grew up in a rural area just outside of this town a little bit, and that felt very different too from what I saw on Sesame Street. So it was very interesting to me to see that city street and to see where those people lived in such close proximity with one another. And it was the diversity too. All the human actors in Sesame Street were like the people that I saw in my neighborhoods. And I love that. Similarly, if you're familiar with this channel, you know that I'm a very big fan of Jim Henson and the Muppets. I'm an avid collector of Muppets. I mean, I pick and choose. I'm not a completist by any means because there's just a lot of stuff out there, and there always has been and there always will be. And similarly, I love Sesame Street, and I pick and choose the stuff that really pushes that nostalgia button for me. And Jim Henson had a particular style. The acerbic wit, the puns, the snarkiness of the characters. I just loved that so much. And in Sesame Street, you would have these sort of subtle, snarky jabs that the characters would throw at one another, or there would be some humor in there that could be for the parents and also for the children. And I just love that. That's smart. That's genius, actually. And I think that's one of the reasons why The Simpsons has been a show that has lasted so long, is it appeals to everyone, not just one particular age group, even though it's a cartoon. So Palisades came out with some Muppets figures back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they were very, very cool. And they only released one Sesame Street character. I believe this to be true. There was a Super Grover released as a Comic-Con exclusive. And of course, I wasn't able to find that or grab that for myself. But I was able to collect some of the Palisades Muppet Show figures. In fact, I have Gonzo right here. He's fantastic. I love Gonzo, and Camilla came with Camilla, his female companion. Got this Kermit the Frog. Now this Kermit the Frog, of course, is wearing the newscaster trench coat, which he would always appear on Sesame Street wearing. So I do have this particular version of Kermit that could appear on Sesame Street. And I have a few other figures too. And then they went kaput. They went out of business. I think if you just give the world 20 or so years, it'll come around. And we've seen a lot of this happening lately, especially for people of my generation. If you're between the age of 35 and 55, you've seen a lot of stuff coming out lately that is specifically catering to people of our age bracket. Now, Sesame Street is still around and it's still thriving, and every once in a while they'll throw in a vintage skit, and that's very, very cool. But boy, the original episodes of Sesame Street really had such a severe impact on me in such a positive way that those characters I'm in love with. Oscar the Grouch, absolutely huge fan of Grover. Bert and Ernie are two of my favorite characters of all time, quite literally of all time. And of course the Count. I mean, who can forget the Count? Big Bird, Snuffleupagus, and Cookie Monster, and all the monsters. I just love all those characters. So I'm really excited that Super 7 is coming out with these reaction figures that are really spectacularly beautiful and very simple in their design. And I'm excited though that NECA is putting out some of these Sesame Street characters as well, except they're doing something a little bit different. Before we get into the big reveal, I want to show you something else that NECA came out with recently. These are the Toonie TV versions of Bert and Ernie, and they are absolutely gorgeous. Let's have a look at the video I shot about a week ago where I opened these guys up. So I've not really felt a huge pull to grab all of these NECA figures that are in this particular style. The Toonie Terrors figures are a little bit hit and miss for me, but so much of this has turned out pretty great, and their sculpts keep getting better and better. This Bert, for example, is amazing, and now we're gonna have a look at Ernie too. I do want to note that the coloration on these two figures is more aligned with the way that they look on the TV screen. So there is at least vintage television, and the brightness is not quite there, which is kind of makes these very unique. And when I was little in the early 80s, there was a lot of Sesame Street merchandise. Some of the stuff that trickled over from the 70s, and a lot of newer stuff that came out in the early 80s as well. There were these vinyl rubber headed Bert and Ernie puppets, and I never had them, but my childhood friend Ben had one. Here's a picture of me holding that, almost as if I'm like hoping to take it home with me. But that was definitely Ben's Bert puppet, and every time I see those in antique stores, they're usually pretty damaged, and I'm always tempted to pick one up or both when I see them. And then of course, as I've talked about on this channel, there are the Fisher-Price Little People figurines that came out too that are just amazing. I quite literally just completed my Fisher-Price Sesame Street playset, and I just couldn't be happier. And a shout out again to Aaron Davies for helping me get that all the way from Utah. So here's the big reveal, folks. I just ordered these from NECA and I got them in the mail. We've got the BERT and Ernie NECA Ultimate action figures. Not only are these, deluxe action figures with high detail and lots of accessories, as we see with NECA Ultimate figures, we can consider these figures, these new Sesame Street figures that are coming out from NECA, as a kind of continuation of the Palisades line. How lucky are we to finally have the Sesame Street figures that potentially Palisades could have come out with. So here are the boxes. We've got beautiful illustrations the illustrations are very reminiscent of the children's books that came out in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And in here, you have a beautiful photograph of Ernie and all of the accessories that he comes with. He also comes with the letter C. Bert comes with the letter A here. And also just a huge thank you to my friend James, who gave me these two well-loved Bert and Ernie stuffies from his childhood recently. And I just love them as part of the collection. Yes, they're a little creepy, missing their pupils, but these two are adorable. So thank you, James. Now, let's get these NECA figures opened up. All right, so these beautiful characters are out of their packages, and I couldn't be more delighted. Now, I have a few minor complaints, and we'll get into that, but overall, I am just absolutely astounded at how beautiful these figures are. Now, they each come with the same background design, which again looks very illustrative, very reminiscent of the golden books that came out that depicted Sesame Street characters. And they also come with a variety of wonderful accessories. We're gonna look at Ernie first. He looks fantastic. He came with this head in the package, and I really want to display him with his open mouth and happy face like that. And he looks great. Now, in looking at this on the package, through the package, I thought these hairs were painted on and part of the same mold, but it's very clear that these are a soft rubber, soft plastic that is glued into the top of Ernie's head. And there are two different hair configurations. So you get two different heads, but also with two different expressions, but also two different clumps of hair. Very, very cool. Now, my friend Mark, who co-hosts Cambridge and Washawn with me, has mentioned a few times that he would prefer if the clothing were soft goods. Now, these are not soft goods, but the sweater here and the sweater here, both of these are like soft rubber in the torso area, which is very, very cool and allows for more manipulation of the figure. And it does kind of give more of a fabric feeling to these characters as well. Let's look at these shoes for a moment. The details on their adorable little shoes are just spectacular. Let's get into even more of these details. Bert's hair is actually removable. Ernie's is not, so it seems. So you can remove this hair, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because they are individual to the head. As you can see, the hole in here is the same peg this peg fits here with that hole, and then this one is a smaller hole with a smaller peg. And so they are specific to the head sculpts. Why they're not glued in doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, my biggest complaint with these figures is how difficult it was to change their heads. The pegs do not snap in easily. It could be that it's a little bit chilly here today, but it did take quite a bit of effort to get the heads back onto their pegs, and that made me very nervous. But other than that, the articulation is fantastic on these figures. The details are just incredible. I mean, again, the shoes, the pants, the sweaters, so cute. Ernie's legs are a little bit thicker here, and the articulation's not too loose, which is nice. Ernie comes with the portrait of Bert and Ernie, and it has a little thing back here where I could actually hang it using a regular sized nail if I wanted to, which is very cool. They both come with these extra hands, really kind of cute different options for their hand positions, which is great. Ernie comes with the letter C with these eyeballs. The texture here is just like the Muppet foam that we saw in the Palisades figures texture. As you can see here, bring Kermit over here. You can see with Kermit's face, there's a kind of texture. So the fabric or the foam used for the original Muppets is emulated here in these figures, just like the Palisades. So you can see here, we've got the texture on Ernie's face that's just like the Muppet materials. Very cool. Of course, Ernie comes with his rubber ducky. Rubber ducky, you're the one. Rubber ducky, you're the one. Rubber ducky, you're the one. And then Bert comes with the letter A, again with the same texture. I kind of love this one with the little face. It's a little creepy and really fantastic. Love that. He comes with his book of boring stories. So great, gives me such joy. His bottle cap collection, his paper clip collection. Wow, so cool. And this is in a little cigar box. Very cool. Very cool. Again, he's got his extra hands, like that, and his pigeon. So great. Now, another thing that I really want to point out here is that you can change the eyebrow expression on Bert. Very cool. I love that we can change the eyebrows. These guys are beautiful. NECA, thank you so much for doing this. Okay, friends, thank you so much for watching this video. These two figures from NECA are incredible, as you can see. This is just something that toy collectors like me, fans of Sesame Street, have been waiting for a long period of time. And it's exciting to finally have these figures. This weekend, there have been a lot of amazing reveals from the New York Toy Fair. And we're seeing that there's gonna be a Big Bird coming, and an Oscar the Grouch coming, and a Harry the Monster coming, and I couldn't be happier. I do know also that they're planning to release a count as well, and I'm just super excited. For fans of Sesame Street, right now is a really amazing time for us. It's so cool to see what's happening for people who collect toys and are fans of Jim Henson and fans of Sesame Street and fans of PBS. It's really cool to finally get some action figures of something that we grew up watching on public television. So I'm hoping they'll also release more pieces of the set, because the set of Sesame Street is a character into itself. One of the main reasons why I love Sesame Street, as I mentioned before, is the set design. It's the place in which all of these interesting characters exist. And that's part of why we love it so much. A huge thank you to the patrons of this channel: HP Brown Sauce Craft, Allison Troy, Julia Honer, MotuOriginsCork, Thanos Copter, and Ace. Thank you all so much for continuing to contribute to this channel. And HP Brown Sauce Craft is a new member, so HP, thank you so much for joining this month. So folks, if you enjoy Sesame Street as much as I do, I'm sure that some of the reasons align with mine. It's the general aesthetic, it's Jim Henson's genius, it's the sense of humor, it's the teaching aspect, it's that the show, each episode and each segment in each episode, they speak to everyone, not just one particular demographic. It's children of all ages, and that's just amazing to me, and something that I treasure and I aim for in my own life as well. As an artist and as a toy collector, Sesame Street just really hits that button for me. It's so wonderful. The characters, the set design, the handmade quality of everything, just amazing. And it's smart too, and that always helps. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click like and subscribe. Tell your friends about the Skele Vader channel. You can find Skele Vader over on Instagram as well. And if you're interested in becoming a Patreon, the link is right down below. $3 a month gets you entry to vlogs and clips from Cambridge and Washawn, the podcast that I co-host with my friend Mark from Wake Up Heavy. We are now posting little previews before each episode is released over on my Patreon. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click that link below and join. All right, we'll see you in the next video.